everyone, this is The Big Fight and I'm Maria Shakil. The terror attack that took place in Pahalgam at 2:30 p.m. on April 22nd has left the entire country grappling with grief and shock. What was supposed to be a serene retreat for the tourists turned into a nightmare, where numerous lives were lost in a matter of moments. From a grieving bride to a traumatized mother, many children who saw their fathers killed before their eyes. It was a massacre of 26 tourists who came from various states of India, in fact 14 states. As their coffins reached their hometowns, India stood in an unconditional solidarity with the next of kin. India has announced measures against Pakistan. They include the closure of the main border crossing linking the two countries, the suspension of a landmark water sharing treaty, that is the Indus Water Treaty, the compulsion of diplomats, and an order for some Pakistani visa holders to leave within 48 hours. Amidst the sense of uncertainty and insecurity, Prime Minister Modi's speech in Madhubani in Bihar yesterday reflected the sentiments of every Indian. Switching from Hindi to English, Prime Minister Modi addressed the world that India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backers, that India will pursue them to the ends of the earth. Within minutes, the world leaders, from French President Emmanuel Macron to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to King Abdullah of Jordan to Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, called Prime Minister Modi to convey that they stand firmly with India to strengthen counter-terrorism efforts. In fact, today, Tulsi Gabbard, who is the Director of National Intelligence in the Trump administration, said that they will support India to hunt down those responsible for this heinous attack. As the chorus grows from within the country and support comes from outside, what will be India's next move? Let me bring in the guests on The Big Fight tonight. We have Nikunj Garg, Senior Managing Editor of NDTV, joining me here in the studio. Vikram Sood is former RAW Chief. General VP Malik is former Chief of Army Staff. We have Ajay Sahni, Executive Director, Institute for Conflict Management and South Asia Terrorism Portal. Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan is joining us. We have Professor Swasti Rao. Shashank is former Foreign Secretary. Adrian Calamil is Fellow of Arabian Peninsula Institute. And John Rosso is a National Security Analyst who joins us. Nikunj, I'm going to begin with you. As a journalist who has reported on the surgical strikes and also on the aerial strikes which were carried out by India post the Uri and Pulwama attacks in the past, how do you sense the security apparatus in the last 72 hours and particularly after the Prime Minister's speech yesterday?
Well, look, Maria, the reaction from the political establishment, the security establishment hasn't obviously spoken out in open as they usually don't, is quite clearly indicative of one fact. And that fact is that the response would be certainly surmounting and certainly much more punishing than the previous ones. Whether that response comes in quickly, in a matter of few hours from now, or whether it comes in some time. That, of course, will be decided by the operational commanders, to whom the political leadership gives the usual free hand when it comes to operational matters. That no political establishment usually tries to force or tries to push the military commanders when these kind of decisions are to be taken. However, the Prime Minister's speech and the general mood in the country, which we have seen the entire political establishment for a change after a very long time uniting in giving out a message to Pakistan and the International Committee of Nations, is that this kind of barbarism must now come to an end. And therefore, the response has to be in sync, in line, commensurate with the kind of feeling and thought that is there.
Okay, so coming to this conversation, Nikunj, so let me bring in John here. John, Pakistan says that diverting Indus Water Treaty is an act of war. It has suspended Simla Pact as well. So clearly all bets are off as far as these two countries are concerned. The elephant in the room, one would say, is also the reaction that can come from China. But yesterday, in that briefing which happened by the Ministry of External Affairs, among the 30 envoys who were called was also the Chinese envoy to India. Do you get this sense that the stand which will be taken by China may not be what Pakistan may expect at this juncture?
Well, I think that China wants to avoid any kind of direct confrontation with India. Don't forget, how the last standoff between China and India in the Himalayas turned out, and it wants to keep sort of a neutral stance in a way between Pakistan, which is sort of an ally, and India, and doesn't want to be pulled in.
John, my additional question to you would be here, the fact that China, of course, has its own challenges, security challenges and non-security challenges at this juncture. But remember, they have an all-weather friendship with Pakistan, and a lot can be done on the sly. A lot of information sharing, a lot of movement information of Indian assets can be passed on to Pakistan by the Chinese, is what the sense of the security and the strategic establishment is, even while they try to maintain a neutral posture overtly. Do you think that should be a matter of concern for the Indian strategic planners?
Well, when it comes to like intelligence and things of that sort, of course. I mean, the Chinese are the 800-pound gorilla, in the region, and with their connections, they can provide intelligence about Indian plans, Indian movements, and so forth to offset the some of the weaknesses of Pakistan's military. So I think that China won't overtly, be pushing to get involved militarily or so forth, but it could provide intelligence support to Pakistan, much as the U.S. is providing intelligence support to India.
Intelligence sharing is something that I would like the question to be taken to our other panelists too. The fact, Ajay Sahni, the fact is that intelligence sharing is something that becomes critical when it comes to operations that India has in past undertaken against Pakistan, because element of surprise is something that every force would want to maintain in this case. Or do you think that given the intensity of the reaction that has come from the Indian public and Indian political class speaking in one voice, that element of surprise is no more needed actually from the Indian side?
There's no element of surprise in terms of the general, imperatives of a response. There is no, and there never was even in the past cases that we have spoken of. The element of surprise is on where the attack is going to come. The element of surprise is if there is ample intelligence provided, for instance, by our agencies or by the Americans, of the location of multiple potential targets, which target will be taken down and by what methods. That is where the element of surprise comes. Not that are we going to respond or not. The timing of the response, the location of the response, the individual, the specific target of the response, this is what provides you the element of surprise. There is absolutely no doubt that there is going to be a response.
Yes, Lieutenant General Narasimhan, taking that thought forward, particularly to do with intelligence, given the statement which has come in from Tulsi Gabbard, and many see this as, perhaps Americans may not really back India if India were to go for a military operation against, against Pakistan. How do you view this? Is there a shift which has happened from what we saw post-Uri and post-Pulwama?
Thank you. There are two aspects I think we need to look into this. The first aspect is whether the US gives the support or not. Like, take your mind back to Balakot, take your mind back to the reactions to Uri that we had. Even at that time, we went in with whatever planning we had done. And with or without the support, we are doing it at that point in time. Today, the situation seems to be more favoring a kind of an offensive action, if at all it is being planned. I'm sure some planning must be on some point in time, like Mr. Ajay Sani brought out. It is actually the timing, the level, and the place at which these are going to be applied as the surprise factor, actually. And those are the ones I think that are going to happen. And similarly, like there was a mention about China giving intelligence support to Pakistan. Take your mind back and see in various situations how China helped out Pakistan earlier during Kargil, during the other wars that we have fought with Pakistan. That will give you an indication as to how China will help out Pakistan or will not help out Pakistan. In fact, in Kargil, they didn't help out Pakistan at all in any manner. So it is the way that you also mentioned that the Chinese ambassador was also attending the briefing by the Foreign Office. So obviously, they would have been taken on board and given the exact kind of thing that happened in this particular incident. And the statement of the Chinese Foreign Office spokesperson also indicates that they actually are against all forms of terrorism. So all this put together, they may give some kind of a surreptitious kind of a help to Pakistan in terms of intelligence and other things. I don't think any other serious support is going to come from China. From the US side, you find a favorable kind of disposition towards India on this. I think that will strengthen the hands of India in planning whatever retaliatory measure that it is planning at this point in time.
Okay. Adrian, what about the Middle East? The countries from Qatar to UAE to Saudi Arabia, do you think, given the kind of equation and the personal chemistry that the Prime Minister has, Prime Minister Modi was in Saudi Arabia when he cut short that trip and returned post these terror attacks, that there will be a different response? They will stand with India, or has India managed to ensure complete isolation of Pakistan at this point?
Thank you for having me. That's a great question. I don't think they've managed complete isolation of Pakistan. There are still going to be the countries in that region, even though you'll have, let's say, the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran come out and denounce the attack and willing to work with Pakistan and India to resolve the conflict. They're not working to resolve the conflict. And that's part of the problem here, is that this line, this stretch of, you basically have this connection of dots between Tehran to Kabul to Islamabad, and it is turned into a terrorist highway. Just a couple months ago, there was a major jihadist conference in the Kashmir area, and you had Hamas spokespeople there, Hamas members there. And then you look at the who supports Hamas, who's their main financial backer. It's Qatar. So those countries will be difficult. Saudi Arabia, yeah, there's a real tight relationship. There's the IMEC corridor, which is really Modi's vision, which is includes Saudi Arabia. So it will be able to turn the opinion in that direction with those Saudis, UAE, some of the Gulf states, and the more moderate countries. But if you find yourself inside that Islamic Republic axis or that orbit, it's going to be lip service and then probably working behind and against India and towards Pakistan's interests.
Let me also bring in the lady in the panel on the discussion, so to say. There's no debate here tonight. Professor Swasti Rao.
Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, Professor. The point, I was speaking to two experts yesterday, Lisa Curtis and one more gentleman, Richard Russo. I asked them one question that is probably the topmost in the mind of the Indian public currently, and that is that what would be the Indian response that will contain the intensity of the emotion that this country has, the emotional churn that the country has gone through, and that has also been reflected in the words of the Prime Minister when he was speaking. What can be that response? We have seen surgical strikes, we have seen air strikes on Pakistan in the past in lieu of the dastardly terror strikes that they have carried out. But what is there on the table additionally that India can do to try and ensure those words of Prime Minister actually translate into action?
Yes. That's I think it's on everybody's mind, and I think there are 3-4 elements to it. And if you allow me the time, I'll just elaborate on them briefly. One thing is that what should be on the table. So as you can see, the mood of the nation is that we have to teach Pakistan a lesson, because this is high time, and Pakistan cannot really do what it has done. It has been completely audacious, and this is completely unacceptable. So there is no doubt about the fact how nation is feeling. Now, with respect to what India can do, whether we choose to deter Pakistan, or whether we choose to, I mean, theoretically speaking, destroy Pakistan, even if that's very extreme, ultimately it is a matter of the political will. What seems more realistic is something that I think that everybody in the panel is also speaking, is that we have to really do something that creates a deterrence, at least for next few years, because whatever we did by way of Balakot gave us a bit of a interregnum for a few years, and then they repeated it again. So I think that is very, very obvious, and I'm with the panel when they say that. So we have to look at something which is offensive, which comes in a surprising manner, in a surprising enough manner to them, and which also has the right intelligence. Because in this particular case, there has been a failure to predict. The intelligence failure is there, but also the fragile thing with intelligence is that whenever intelligence succeeds, nobody really comes to know. It is only when it fails that we see disasters. So please understand that it's a very sensitive topic. So yes, for sure. And that's why we're looking at the United States. But more importantly, I think there's one thing that we need to keep in mind is that whether we do an offensive strike or not, whatever the political will decides, and whatever level we decide to go up the escalation matrix, is something that we will all see. But what we have to understand, the crux of the matter is that as long as Pakistan's capacity to regenerate, the regenerative capacity remains to be greater than our elimination capacity, there will always be a problem. And when I say a regenerative capacity, what I mean is that if they send 10, we kill 10, then they send 12, then we kill 12, they send 15, we kill 15, but this becomes a spiral. And that is the real problem, because they have become a toxic state. They have become a malignant army that have no fear in dying. And how do you really resolve that? So to really dampen and to really reduce Pakistan's regenerative capacity is where we have to have a broader strategy. And that broader strategy has to take into account what Prime Minister was saying, that it's not Pakistan alone, it's also the enablers and the backers of Pakistan. And here we have to bring in the China angle. It is not just about a simple backing of Pakistan. It is not just about, destabilizing India through Pakistan and Bangladesh. It is a very, very steady decades of engagement with Pakistan, where today China is giving more than 82% of Pakistani weapon, they are coming from China. And similarly in the case of Bangladesh. And also remember, it's not just China alone. Of course, China and us, we have a problem there. But very quickly, nobody here is mentioning the factor of Turkey, because Chinese weapons have not been battle tested. They run into quality problems, but Turkish weapons are battle tested. And Turkey, under its Asia Anew policy, is only engaging with the Islamist countries in Asia. It has completely banned India from its sales in 2024. And therefore, Turkish weapons is what really compensates for the bad quality Chinese weapons. And again, this process has been on for the last 1 decade or so, and even more. And last is, the Chinese and the Turkish help to Pakistan is not merely about defense equipment. It is about PSYOPs. Please read about that. You will see that there are agreements between these countries that talk about how to undermine India's image in the neighborhood, and also, give out anti-India narratives to the Southeast Asian Muslim population in a way which is very, very harmful. So I think when we take a broader strategy into mind, I think this is what perhaps Prime Minister is also aiming at. And there is no, getting away from Pakistan's regenerative capacity until we have a broad spectrum strategy. So offensive first, but then a long-term view has to be there. And that's my opinion.
All right, Ambassador Shashank, appreciate your patience. Let me come to you now. And the question certainly would be, did Indian establishment not take the warning that came from Army Chief Munir seriously enough and dismiss it rather as saber rattling?
Well, I would say that it's not just the warning from Munir, because Munir, he has been rattling of various things, and there are domestic issues in Pakistan where Munir is under great pressure. So to say that, well, when he's fighting his own battles within Pakistan, that he would be carrying out this kind of a dastardly act in India would be too much of an overreach. But I would say that it is really that India has given much more political autonomy to the local political leadership in Jammu and Kashmir. And there are gaps which have now come up between the security perceptions in the local administration and the security perception in Delhi. So we should have really taken care to close all these gaps, which we have not done, obviously. And Munir has been able to take advantage of that. They have, I think, used all their assets in J&K and elsewhere in India. And I think now time has come. But for a very long time, Pakistan has been saying that these terrorists are not controlled by Pakistan. And it has taken several years for us to work out and find that actually they were working behind the scene in the ISI or in the Pakistani army and political establishment. Therefore, this time it has become absolutely necessary that we take a final decision and tell them that henceforth Islamic terrorism, which is coming out of Pakistan and Pakistan is trying to spread it to Bangladesh, will not be tolerated. And I think it is not just a question of demolishing Pakistan's state completely, but I think it is a question of telling the Pakistan state that unless it behaves, India will go all out to make sure that the people of Pakistan would then convince their leadership to behave responsibly.
Foreign Secretary Shank, please tell me this also, since you have dealt with the world of diplomacy all your life, that will a diplomatic offensive suffice at this stage? Can a diplomatic offensive construct be enough for the anger or the anguish that this country is facing right now, and can it be a replacement of military component as well, or a military component at this juncture is a must and that should be part of an overall diplomatic offensive? How do we look at it?
No, it would be a fallacy if the government sees that this is only to pacify the Indian public. I think that would be really very wrong assessment on the part of the Indian government. So what they have to do is to go all out for a hybrid action, diplomatic, economic, and finding out the targets that they have identified or must have identified, how to destroy them. Finally, to carry out a long-term battle that those who were behind this dastardly act, whatever status, whatever position they were holding, we have to get hold of them till the end, as Prime Minister said, end of the earth. We'll find them, locate them and destroy them. So that needs to be carried out with all our friends all over the world. Especially, I think, in the neighboring countries. I have heard that many people have talked about Iran, China, Afghanistan. I am quite sure that they would not be against India in this case. They might be making anodyne statements in the beginning, but if India carries out a strong attack and a strong action, I am quite sure that they would fall in line.
Just a word more on the Indus Water Treaty, which has been put on hold. It is being seen as, because 80% of irrigation in Pakistan, the land is dependent on the water from this crucial river, and there is that issue of water security also. Do you see this as a major move that can actually cripple Pakistan?
Well, nothing has been done really. I mean, India has simply told Pakistan that now it will take its own decisions. So it will not allow Pakistan to go run to the international councils and say that India should reduce the height of its dams or should not use water which it should use for its own people. So we are not using water for people in Jammu and Kashmir, in Punjab, in Himachal, Haryana, Delhi. We are taking more care of the people in Pakistan because we feel that maybe Pakistani establishment cannot do it. So we should look after their interests. I think our time has come where we have said that now the Pakistani people should take care of their own leadership, make them responsible, behave properly, and India will take care of its own interests. It's not going to deprive the Pakistanis totally, but India will take care of its own interests of people in Kashmir, people in other parts of India.
Ajay Sani,
and we are not the only ones. Let me just tell you that
sure,
China has not got any of these arrangements with any country in the neighborhood, whether India, whether Bangladesh, or countries in the Southeast Asian region. They share information which they want to share, otherwise they don't share the information.
Ajay Sani, this thought particularly to do with Indus Water Treaty. It is being seen as a massive and a major diplomatic offensive by India. On the other hand, the Shimla agreement has been suspended by Pakistan as well. So there has been a tit for tat, almost like gloves are off kind of a diplomatic move which is happening on both the sides. But India says that it is not only morally incumbent on India, but they are also trying to ensure that there is a sovereign right that they have because of this continued cross-border terrorism. That's the reason why they have gone ahead and put on hold the crucial water treaty. Do you really see this as that significant a move?
May I just take up a couple of other points that have been made by some of the other commentators? One is, of course, the idea that it is some kind of a lack of coordination between the state government and the center, which is the cause of the security lapse or the vulnerabilities to this kind of an attack. The entire security apparatus is very clearly under the center. The state government does not control the security apparatus in Jammu and Kashmir. The Union Territory government does not control the security apparatus in Jammu and Kashmir at this juncture. Number two, I think Dr. Rao spoke of, they send in 10 terrorists, we kill 10 terrorists, then they send in 12, then we kill 12, then they send in 50. This seems to be an escalatory ladder that Pakistan is going under. Now, I would suggest that we look at the numbers actually. We are not seeing more and more terrorists coming in and being killed. What we are seeing is that from thousands of terrorists, active terrorists operative at one point of time in Jammu and Kashmir, we have now come down to the mid double digits. The last assessment from official sources that I have seen said that there were about 60 active terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. The numbers are going down. We have got substantial security force dominance over there. So, just saying that this is something that is escalating or giving an impression that this is something that is escalating. This is an incident. It's a terrible incident. But the trajectory of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir is very much downwards. And let me put it very clearly, we are winning this war. They said they would balkanize India. They are being balkanized. They said they would ruin India economically. They are facing economic ruination. Now to come to your question, I think on both sides, both the Indus Water Treaty and the withdrawal from the Shimla Agreement, these are symbolic postures. They have no immediate impact on the security situation in the region. They have no practical implications in the near term. In the long term, if we actually withdraw from the Indus Water Treaty, and we then take action to impede or divert or minimize the water flows into Pakistan, that could, of course, have devastating impact on Pakistan. But can we do that? Will we do that? That's a long-term issue. It takes India, up to 3 decades to build a dam. So let's not think that this is something that it's a tap that will turn off tomorrow.
Adrian Calamel, my question to you is that are we winning this war, as in is India actually winning this war on terror? Because time and again, multiple commentators have said that Pakistan retains the ability. Number of incidents may have come down, that's fine, and that can be seen as a success. But time and again, Pakistan has shown that it retains the capability to strike at will, at least inside Jammu and Kashmir. And this is one incident. However, there have been incidents of targeting migrant laborers, there have been incidents of targeting tourists, and there have been incidents of targeting security forces fairly regularly. Prior to this, attacks were on the security forces, and that's why there was probably not so much of hue and cry, but this time completely innocent civilians have been butchered in cold blood. So the question is that, as Professor Swasti Rao was saying, that Pakistan retains that capability to carry out strikes at will, at least inside Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a lesson that the United States learned during our engagement in Afghanistan, is that they can just bleed border, bleed back into Pakistan. And the number of attacks may be down in Kashmir, but I think we need to look at the global trend as far as terrorism goes, and not look at these groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba as isolated groups that work, that are completely compartmentalized. They do coordinate with each other. We do know that Hamas was at a terror camp here at a jihadist conference. So the global threat matrix is at a much higher rate. I mean, it's alarming what's going on in Afghanistan. We're completely blind to it in a lot of cases. Individuals that we thought were dead, such as Hamza bin Laden, that we were told were dead by the CIA, are actually in camps in Afghanistan, running camps. So, and that should be part of India's strategy here, as far as any kinetic operations, is they know where those camps are. There's target packages for all these camps. These camps should be eliminated, the ones that dot the border, that dot all along the border. You need to remove and deny the space for terrorists to operate, or else you're playing defense. And then you're at the will of your enemy. When they decide to fire, they're going to fire at a time of their choosing, unless you deny them that space. And that's what India needs to do, is to deny them that space right now. And then also, I would put in the economic pressures. They need to look to the United States. They need to look to their allies to put the squeeze and put Pakistan in an economic vice and make them feel the pain, so that this will not be allowed again. This cannot happen again. These are the consequences. It's not going to be a one-off airstrike hitting one camp. We're going to decimate those camps, okay? And then we're going to, pressure you economically with our partners, with some of the largest economies in the world.
Adrian Calamel, I must compliment you that I've been listening to these discussions for the entire week almost, and I've specifically asked some experts this specific question about India's response. I must say that a very cogent reply has come from you for the first time, where you say what we need to do is a continuous process, and it is not about a one-off strike. And then only the Prime Minister's vision of completely decimating this terror emanating from the Pakistani soil can actually be taken forward or implemented on the ground. I must compliment you there for your response. Professor Swasti Rao, you were wanting to make a point. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so very quickly, I think just I'm responding to Ajay sir, and this was of course not an official number. I was just illustrating the point, which is that Pakistan is not able to let go. I mean, basically, it's not able to lose its regenerative capacity, and that continues to be a problem, because it's not just the numbers, it's also the manner. I mean, the terrorists have become much more better, trained. They have better weapons. This particular Pahalgam incident is an unprecedented incident, where they have literally segregated Muslims, non-Muslims. This is completely new. This is completely unprecedented. So I think the impact factor has to be taken into account, in a holistic enough manner. So I think that was the point that I was wishing to make. And secondly, I think I just wanted to also say that I don't think we are looking really at a conventional war. I completely agree with the point that a one-off strike is not going to help, because, like, for example, we now understand that the deterrence value of Balakot was a few years, and then Pakistan seemed to change its strategy and then hit us at a time when there were early warnings, and they could see that we are not really picking those early warnings. So this is a continuous, process which is going to evolve. And I think the whole nation comes to, to be together in order to, develop a response for that. So what I again want to say is that in this area of Southern Asia, I refuse to call it South Asia, but in this area of Southern Asia, we will probably not see a conventional war. But what is going to remain is this, just below the threshold of the conventional war, we will see a lot of gray zone, a lot of destabilization in many, many ways. And perhaps my real worry is that, is India prepared for those capabilities, for getting those capabilities is my real concern. As far as identifying those camps are concerned, as far as carrying out targeted strikes on those camps are concerned, I think we have capabilities. But do we have the capabilities to fight a very asymmetric warfare coming from three fronts, which is backed by China and other elements, is my real worry. And I think that is what perhaps the government is also thinking in a long-term strategy.
Adrian, before I give you the final words, let me go to Mr. Ajay Sahni. Mr. Ajay Sahni wanted to make a point while others were speaking. Mr. Sahni, please go ahead.
And Lieutenant General
Couple of quick
Narendra
points. First of all, couple of points. First of all, Adrian, if you go by data, the peak of global terrorism was around 2014-15, and there has been a steady decline in terrorist violence globally. So we have, when we talk about the environment being more and more threatening, I think we need to back that up at least with some kind of an index. There is no comparison between Afghanistan and India and what has happened in Afghanistan and India. Professor Rao, perhaps you are too young to know what happened through the entire trajectory of the 35 years of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. There is nothing new in what has happened in Pahalgam at this moment. Civilians have been targeted, selectively targeted again and again. For instance, just last year, we had that incident at Riyasi, where a busload of Hindu pilgrims was targeted, and they've been selectively targeted towards Hindus. So there's nothing new over here. I think these sweeping generalizations you make need to be moderated by some familiarity with the history.
I would really appreciate if views of other panelists are respected as much as they respect your views. Let me move and bring in Lieutenant General Narasimhan.
You can't go against reality. You cannot propagate falsehoods.
It would be, I mean, the age comment is probably a little out of place here. I mean, I would say that she is speaking of her experience and of her learnings.
Yes.
Let it remain there in that realm
General
only.
Sahni, the view certainly is there was almost an unwritten rule in Kashmir that terrorists never targeted tourists, those who were seen as responsible for the economic lifeline. They were providing opportunities and employment opportunities for people of Kashmir. That unwritten rule has been broken.
That is not what was said. That is not what was asserted.
That seems to be the case this time around. Lieutenant General Narasimhan, please go ahead.
Anyway, I'm not going to get into any controversy. I'm just trying to bring in 2 or 3 points. One point is that what Adrian mentioned about being constantly on the vigil and not allowing the terrorists to come into India. That is what the Indian Army has been doing all along. It is not that they have been trying to give one-off things, react to one-off things, and then back off. That is not the way we have been doing. We have been actually been at it for the last about 35 years. And once in a while, this kind of incident happens. And I think that is what we need to take stock of and see how we can avoid such incidents to take place. That is point number one. Point number two, this time around, there's one thing that is different. You please look at the reaction that has come from the civilians in the Kashmir Valley. That is a positive sign, I think, that we need to build in to our planning and our further operation that we need to do. The third thing is about intelligence that came up somewhere in between in one of the comments. Intelligence is something which, like Dr. Swasti Rao mentioned, whenever intelligence succeeds, it is not visible. It is visible when intelligence fails. And this time around, generally what happens is when the situation becomes normal, you find that the presence of the security forces, etc., are generally reduced, basically to bring in the sense of normalcy. And that is one of those issues that has been taken advantage of by the perpetrators of this incident. And those are the things I think that we need to look into and ensure a constant kind of intelligence monitoring, and the intelligence network that was there functioning earlier is updated and kept going all along, is something I think that we need to look into. Again, in your channel only, I had mentioned the day before yesterday, that not with the aim of being vindictive, but with the aim of learning the lessons from this incident is something that we need to be looking into and taking the necessary action to ensure that such incidents do not happen.
General Narasimhan,
I think that is the way we need to go ahead.
General Narasimhan, my sense is that what Mr. Adrian was trying to say is that a larger offensive posture on a continuous basis is what is required, is what I understood from his comment. Nobody is doubting that Indian Army has been very valiantly guarding the line of control for the last 35 years. But what probably he was hinting at was that you need to maintain an offensive posture vis-a-vis Pakistan and vis-a-vis those terror camps. That is much required. Maria?
Yes, John, 30 seconds to you before I wrap up this segment, and then I bring in other experts who are joining me on the other side. John?
Well,
Yes.
if I could give some concluding remarks, I think that India has to do whatever it needs to do to neutralize the threats posed by these terrorists in Kashmir. I mean, along the lines of what Adrian was saying, go after the training camps. If they're being trained in Afghanistan, they need to go take care of the training camps. They need to deal with the ISI leadership. I mean, it's every terrorist attack that is put forward by Pakistan is an act of war against India.
All right. John, Adrian, Ambassador Shashank, Professor Rao, Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, Ajay Sani, and Nikunj Garg here in the studio. Really appreciate your time. A quick break on Big Fight, and then I'll be joined by General V.P. Malik, former Chief of Army Staff, and former Raw Chief Vikram Sood. So do stay with us. General V.P. Malik is the former Chief of Army Staff. He joins me live. Thank you so much for your time. We are speaking at a time when the next move of the government of India, particularly after what Prime Minister said, is being watched out for. We have seen the aerial strikes. We have seen the surgical strikes after the two acts of terror in Uri and Pulwama. The big question is, how will India be sending a stronger message than what we have seen in the past?
Good evening, Maria. Firstly, when we are looking at all the options, now they include political, diplomatic, economic, as well as military. And in military options, we have to consider both overt as well as covert. Now, we've had two strikes earlier. One was when Uri took place, and we had a surgical strike. Not very deep into the Pakistani territory, but closer to the line of control. And then we had a Balakot strike after Pulwama incident. So we have these capabilities. And the only thing is, I feel that if we have to take action of the kind that we took earlier, these have to be repeated. So I would like to emphasize that firstly, it has to be multi-pronged, all the services together, and all the elements together. It's not just Army, Navy, and Air Force, but all of them together. And secondly, if we have to take these limited actions, then they have to be repeated to send a strong message. As far as the options are concerned on the other side, well, they have to be selected, and there are contingency plans available with the armed forces. And those selection and what would be the implications of that, they have to be analyzed properly before we take it on. I cannot talk about the kind of action or the place of action or the timings, because all that will be decided after analyzing all these issues.
All right, General Malik, the opposition and certain quarters are raising concerns with regards to absence of security in Pahalgam and also the intelligence. What do you think went wrong? Where do you think we went wrong?
Look, I think the whole aspect of unified command, which is functioning in J&K, Union Territory, that needs to be investigated and that needs to be reviewed. Apparently, there has been intelligence failure. Otherwise, we would have come to know as to who are the people, overground workers who have been helping, who have helped these infiltrators, how the infiltration has taken place. The intelligence aspect particularly is important. What is the role of the police and how is the deployment? Because, you can't permit people to go all over the place knowing that there will be some overground workers, there will be some terrorists hiding here and there. And the deployment aspect particularly is important during this tourist season. And you have to restrict people from going into areas which are dangerous, which are likely to be dangerous from security point of view. And I don't know why we didn't think of increasing our deployment in a place like Pahalgam during the peak of the tourist season.
Yes, the fact is that tourists have been targeted and these tourists were unarmed. The message is going to the entire country that they should not visit Kashmir, that the government had wanted post the abrogation of Article 370. It's India which has taken a hit. India has been impacted. Do you think that there are new forms in which Pakistan is targeting India? Perhaps we are not prepared for it?
Maria, we have to take into account what is happening in Pakistan. Over the years, you have yourself covered that the complete attitude, the atmosphere has been changing, and the jihadi elements have been encouraged by people. And today, you also have the Pakistani army, which has almost turned into a jihadi army. They have been using jihadi elements earlier also, but the new leadership in the armed forces, particularly in the army, I call them jihadi, General Zia's time, those who were recruited at that time or who got commissioned at that time. Now, their mindset is quite different. I would say even different to what we had in Pervez Musharraf's time. And these people, the kind of language that they speak and the kind of belief that they have, the kind of mindset that they have, you have seen it how General Munir spoke just a few days ago. So there is a different kind of atmosphere which is anti-Indian, which is jihadi, prone jihadi this thing, and also anti-Hindu. And that is what is happening, and that is what is encouraging the terrorist elements. So that is one aspect we must remember, and we have to take into account. The other thing is that the terrain in J&K particularly, and the kind of atmosphere that we have even now, there are some overground workers to say that it can be totally eliminated, there will be no terrorist incident. I think it would be foolhardy. It would not be facing the truth. The truth is that some of these incidents, some kind of these incidents will continue to take place even after we take some action now. I'm talking the military action, even if we take that now. We have to accept the truth that this is where we are living politically, and this is the kind of relationship that has developed over the years.
General Malik, since you spoke about the Pakistan Army Chief's statement, and it came just a few days ago, where he said that Kashmir is the jugular vein, should that have been seen as more than just saber rattling?
I think so. Yes. It was a different kind of a speech coming from a man in uniform. And also, let's face it, that he is the man who's controlling the Pakistani politics also, not just the military, but also the Pakistani polity there. And he has been encouraging, Pakistan has always been encouraging these terrorist elements. So when a person speaks openly with that kind of ranting he does in open public, to so-called intellectuals, so-called people who have come from abroad, the educated Pakistani people, then I think we have to take it seriously. And it's just not saber rattling. And this is what is happening in the last few days. I think in the last week, we had so many incidents that have taken place. So there is a direct connection between what has happened in Pahalgam and what is the kind of command control which has been being exercised. Now, jihadi elements are controlled by the ISI, and ISI is a part of Pakistan Army.
All right, General VP Malik, really appreciate your time here on NDTV. Let me bring in our next newsmaker, former RAW Chief, Vikram Sood is joining us. Mr. Sood, really appreciate your time. At an all-party meeting yesterday, Mr. Sood, several opposition leaders flagged the issue of lapses in security and intelligence. Given the questions which are being asked, what do you think could have gone wrong in intelligence gathering?
Two or three things I'd say here. One is that intelligence failure is the first target of any mishap or any such incident takes place. The point is, we don't know whether there was intelligence at all or not about these incidents. In any case, I thought I got the impression that this particular spot opened for public in June only, not in April. I don't know whether that's right or wrong. Therefore, if this is correct, then the police would not have been there in any case. So if I'm speculating, I don't know. This is only what one gathers from the media, from the press, that if this was not to be opened before June, the police bandobast would not be there before that, surely. Because they won't be there 2 months in advance. So is that line worth pursuing to find out what happened? If it is correct that the thing opens only in June, this place for the yatris, then obviously something went wrong somewhere else.
Sir, post the abrogation of
Is
Article
that intelligence not available?
Mr. Sood, post the abrogation of Article 370, Kashmir has been largely peaceful. The intelligence grid was seen as sufficient and prepared. Do you think, right now, given the nature of challenges, fresh challenges or newer techniques which are being used by these terrorists, particularly targeting of tourists, there has to be a new intelligence system which has to be put in place?
Yeah, the grid, I think, has worked. Obviously, it has worked because there have been encounters where they've succeeded, which means that the intelligence grid in the last 3-4 years has been doing pretty well. So, of course, incidents will happen. The odd terrorist group will infiltrate now and then. That doesn't mean that there is no intelligence. That just means that somebody got lucky, somebody was prepared, or somebody had internal assistance to do it. There are a lot of factors could go in. I don't even know whether these people had come in the day before or whether they're 10 days in advance, because it could be either way. Only investigations will show when these people actually came. After all, they say there were 2 locals and 2 outsiders. 2 came from POK or wherever, and 2 were from Kashmir. So did these people come in and stay with them or stay somewhere else? A whole lot of questions will arise. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Till then, it is pure speculation.
Okay. As far as the intelligence assessment goes, what kind of response can emanate from Pakistan? And would it be fair to presume that India can certainly contain any time of response coming from Pakistan if they choose to respond?
Judging from past experience, judging from what our capabilities would be now, I think we are well prepared to handle them. They know that. And they will think more than twice before they start anything new. Because as it is, they have their own problems to sort out, plenty of them. And should this one go wrong for them, it's history. So I doubt if in any case, their ministers are saying contradictory things. The defense minister called it, could be a false flag. Their foreign minister said it could be freedom fighters. So they haven't even made up their mind what they want to call this, describe this operation of theirs.
My last question to you would be the potential impact of the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty, which has now been put on hold, given the nature of water situation which is in Pakistan.
It'll take time, because we're only holding it in abeyance. It's not that the water will stop flowing immediately. But yes, they are in difficulty with their water situation as it is. And we can't store the water that we don't send it to them because we don't have the capacity. So this will take time to take effect. It's not as if we decide today and tomorrow it begins to becomes a trickle. No, it won't happen like that. So it's a more, to me, it's more a cyber weapon to tell them that we can do this and we will do it. So you better make up your mind what you want to do, how you want to handle this. And what else? Abrogation, rewriting is the ultimate answer. People like me have said, others have said it too. They get more than their share, and we need to get more into our system. So I don't know how it will work out in the end. But that's the only treaty they've observed. Obviously, because it suited them. And they've already set out that in their list of threshold for using the nuke is if we shut off, so if we abrogate the treaty. And in their threat to us, I think day before yesterday or yesterday, they said, at all, we will use all means available for us to react. All means you know what.
Vikram Sood, really appreciate your time and thank you for all the insights. We are putting out this entire discussion on ndtv.com. That's all from me. I'll be seeing you next week on another edition of The Big Fight. Thanks so much for watching.